This presentation will go through how to package a dependent student, and we are going to be looking at the medical assistant program from the template we built back when we set up our campus templates. So we're just going to go open our template. We're going to be open to the dependent tab. We're going to enter our demographic information for the student. Okay, and our template was already built for the medical assistant program, so everything is in there for the tuition and fees, and all the terms are all set up. So now the only thing we have left to do is to enter an EFC. So we enter 0, which will automatically then populate our Pell Grant for each term. And now we need to look at the loans. The loans are going to be, the unsub is automatically going to be 0 for all students, and you'll see why in a little bit. So the only thing that's going to populate is sub and additional unsub on the top of the spreadsheet. Now you can see it more clearly here at the top that there's 0 for the unsubsidized, but the additional unsubsidized is $2,000 for each AY, and that would be prorated if your program was less than a full academic year, or if your academic year was less than a full academic year. By definition, your estimated monthly payments is going to be only $138. And the student's going to have a balance for each term. And instead of seeing installment payment guidelines, page 2 is going to talk about PLUS loans. The first option will be if the parent wants to cover just the institutional charges. So in order to cover just the institutional charges, the parent actually needs to borrow $2,627.50, but with loan fees that's actually $2,737. So if they were to borrow that amount, they would have a 2-cent credit for the first AY, and here the same thing goes. They need $507.50, and the actual loan with loan fees would be $529, and so the amount that would come into the school, they would have a credit of 34 cents after the second academic year. That's option number 1, or I guess option A. Option B is what if the parent wants to borrow more than what is needed for charges so that the student can get a stipend? Well, here the same calculation occurs where the minimum amount needed. So the parent needs to borrow $2,737. The maximum that the parent can borrow in a PLUS loan for each academic year is calculated based on the cost of attendance budgets that we set up on our campus setup tab at the beginning. In this case, it was a North Park campus, $250 in transportation fees based on the chart to the right, and then that calculated our cost of attendance on a monthly basis for independent and dependent students. So then the monthly amount gets calculated for the academic year, and so the parent can actually borrow up to $9,000 for the academic year, even though only $2,700 is needed to actually cover costs. So the amount that the parent chooses to borrow is, generally it's going to be either the minimum or the maximum, but you have the option to type in any number in between those. So if the parent's sitting there and says, I want to borrow $3,000 extra per academic year, then you could type in $5,737 here. It automatically is going to default to the minimum needed, but you certainly can make that change. When you make a change here, the amount dispersed and the amount of the stipends are going to calculate here at the bottom. just as they did on the stipends for the student payments. The next part is going to deal with what happens if the parent applies but is denied for the PLUS loan. Well, now we're dealing with unsubsidized loans that the student can borrow. Now this is automatically going to calculate how much the student can borrow just to cover the costs, same as before. And if you want to change the dollar amount that they're going to borrow, you can change it here by typing in, say, $4,000 for each academic year. And then the monthly payment will go up as you're typing in the new amount. Now if a student owes money, then they will then the amounts will populate correctly. So let's go and say that the student has a 5,000 EFC, so therefore new Pell. We'll scroll back down, and our payments are going to show the minimum monthly payment, and this is for in school, and number of monthly payments, and the balance that they're going to pay in school. The amount to be paid after school is $41.75, and that's going to be $175 a month and 24 payments. So then you could change these amounts if the student wanted to pay more or less. Now here is what happens if the parent refuses to apply for the PLUS loan. Well, here this is just total costs minus the sub and the additional unsub that the student got. And so they're going to owe $14,000 for the program. So in this instance, it's going to put $250 in school, $300 out of school, and you can see that the out of school, it would take 36 payments. Now since it's over $8,500, you would need corporate approval on this particular payment plan, but at least you could show the student what their options are and show them by changing these amounts how many payments there would be. So if corporate said you have to get it down to 30 payments, then you could modify the minimum amount that the student has to pay to get that number down. So if we changed it to 350, we'd be down to 31, so we'll try 360, and the amount now is down to 30 payments. So this is actually page number 3 for the student, and so you'll just need to print. Best thing probably to do would be to print it out and then walk the student through it on the piece of paper, because then it's going to be one continuous flow. It'll be easier to see the overall than on your computer screen. And then the TILA calculations, this one includes both living with parents and not living with parents. And that is basically everything that you need to know to do a basic dependent appointment. A key note, you can change the zoom on how big or how small print is as it shows up on your computer screen. So if you want to blow things up so it's a lot easier to read, you can change that, and it just means you're going to have to scroll left and right a little bit more because not as much can fit on your computer screen.